The gender inequality issue in the country is so rife that we've become accustomed to stories of widows suffering abuse and exploitation under the guise of culture and religion at the hands of family, the community, and even the church. It is common for in-laws and in some cases adult sons hore ba utswetse ba hlolohadi bana mafa ba sietsweng ke banna ba bona. This equality can also be noted in the distribution of the estate among children. Mo ileng hore ha ona le kgwebo kwano lapeng o tla fumana hore mora ho lebeletse hore be yena salang a tsamaisa kgwebo ha bana ba banana bona ba qhilelwa ka thoko. Why does everyone see an opportunity to loot the widow every time the husband dies? What rights does she have over her late spouse's estate? What support is there at her disposal in instances where the wool is pulled over her face? Ke tsona ditaba tse re kopanyang he ka jeno lena. Gender space ke lona lenaneo lebitso la ka ke Thwasa ke wa mohela ka diatla tse mofuthu hle. Widowhood and females as far as succession and inheritance is concerned. That's what we have on tonight's agenda on gender space. Mamela, o ka tshwaela tabeng tsena kena di handleng tsa rona kena YouTube at Commission for Gender Equality. And then on Twitter, we are at CGE_ZA. Facebook, re Commission for Gender Equality. Instagram, kena ho at CGE Live. O ka romela email ho info@cge.org.za. Ke amohela moeti wa rona wa pele yena lebitso la hae ke Mme Malta Mavuso, who is the provincial manager for Mpumalanga from the Commission for Gender Equality. O teng kwano ho tlo phehisa ditabeng tsa kajeno. Mme, welcome to the show and thank you so much for joining us.
Ngiyabonga sis Thwasa ngijabulela kuba khona ukuthi ku space sakho.
Ke hle ke amohelele moeti wa rona wa bobedi leng Khuntse Motaung yena ke researcher at the Commission for Gender Equality. Mme le yena o tlo re jwetsa hore diphuputsong tsa hae o fumane eng le hore ba eleditse ka lefe ha ba qeta ho etsa diphuputso tsena haholo tse shebileng ba hlolohadi. Ngwaneso, welcome to it.
Dumela o Sipati.
Ngwaneso.
O siame.
Halala ntho di lokile ke a leboha. Butla re hle re wele temeng re wele ditabeng. Mme a ko re hlalosetse, what is widowhood and what connection does it have le taba ya gender equality?
Thank you Sipati. When you talk of widowhood, it's when one has lost a spouse. And when they are still in that process, there's a lot that is happening because they are experiencing different treatments. If you speak about men and women, there's a great difference. So when you speak of inequalities, that's where you will see those inequalities when one spouse has gone.
What are some of the challenges so difumaneng that widows face after losing their spouses?
One, ubona lapho uma sekufika enzabeni yemafa. The family bayangenelela kakhulu.
Yeah.
And ngaleso sikhathi lo mfelokati akanawo amandla okulwa because at that stage psychologically she's not okay, she's weak, she can't fight, she's confused, and then the family comes in. So besides that, you find that they take everything that they work for with the husband because a woman is treated like a subservient. So if you are nothing, it shows ukuthi vele angeke uthole lutho. And if you look at kumacwaningo nje lekendekile ngilapho ubona khona ukuthi make akazange vele abaluleke. Umuntu lo baluleke kakhulu ngibabe. That is why a man is treated like a king and a woman is always treated as a subservient.
Me o bua ntho e kgolo ha o bua tjena ho tla mantswe ya hore ke ntho tsa ngwana rona tsena batho ha ba se ba fihla mane. Can we talk about how society treats the widow in contrast to the widower? Jwalo ka ho ntso hlalosa.
Njengoba uyibekile ekuqaleni injalo vele uma make ashonelwe kubekwa imithetho leminingi kakhulu lenda ukuthi make angakhoni ukuqhubekela phambili lebamba impilo yamake. and then even la kule timpahla leti lebatigcokako make ubekelwa isikhathi lesithe kakhulu 12 months or more and ngaleso sikhathi make kunempilo lekufuna achubeke ngayo nebantwana njengoba wathi ukuthi make ushiywa nako konke lekufanele abukane nako bangabi nandzaba nokuthi unawo ema resources noma akanawo but looking at the husband at any time he's free to go on with life and lokubhlungu make uhlala kulesimo kushisa kungasimnanzi but babe ukhululekile.
Hey, Khonze, ke tlo kenya mona. You are a young person, you are a researcher. Conversations around the equality issue. Di jwang ho rona jwalo ka batho ba batjha. Ke ntwe leng hore qadile ho e nahana taba hore girlfriend ya ka ke batla tshware jwang ha ise le mosadi wa ka ke batla tshware jwang lapeng ke ntho tse re di qoqang hore he nna heso tsebe ho je.
Thank you so much. What's lately as young people, funny enough, Radori Ferromana, in Tilima 2000, are changing the documents of how life is supposed to be.
Sure.
And Kilo Zerbuan Katsola so many times because, especially, I can guarantee you, but at least out of 5 orphans, at least 2 have experienced one. I've experiencing my mom going through that because Kilu saved my father first. And you know, when you grow up, you start saying, "Oh, ito isimulutseka this thing." You know, when did my mom become a servant to my dad, not an equal? Because when we were together, we saw love. Suddenly, my mom was, now you start asking yourself, okay, now even our parents can even dictate, hey, I don't like this lady, and you start asking yourself, okay, if I'm in a relationship with this person, what happens when I'm no longer there? Because we see them there. And what we usually talk about, what I like saying, especially from a research perspective, research will teach you that the trauma of a woman or anybody who has been in trauma will lead to how they treat the next person. Sure. So that is why you sit down and you start realizing, oh, my mom has gone through this. They say, Mama ka akhono bona hore or anagana hore any woman that comes in my life is not. Then how do we change the narrative? How do I level up to wanting to reach the level of equality as a young person? So definitely these are conversations that we are having now. But we always say, you know, in this Women's Month, the young current ones are changing the prospects for how they want to be treated, and the world must listen.
No, udibeile mema voso akomplele. Ukata ubua kwano, the norm is that the widow must remain loyal to the husband. And normally ataya ena utlaba ya apere na kweno telele. The husband, if Ileana sitting, it doesn't really matter. Liring as CGE, what is your position regarding that?
Still commission leglingana ngekwebulili thine silandzelela umthetho. Umthetho i-constitution yethu iyakhuluma kokuthi wonke umuntu unelungelo lokuchuza especially ku culture lekafuna kuyiphila. Uma le culture yakho mina ngingayifuni, you have no right to force me ukuthi ngikwende lokho. So thine sil commission sithi wonke umuntu uyalingana and wonke umuntu ukhululekile ekuthini exercise lilungelo lakhe constitutionally.
Hai ihlakile leeto la tikatikano le sale le telele fela he ke lebohela hore se re qadile ho qoqa ka ditaba tsena. Remember to share your thoughts with us on social media. Kena ho YouTube re Commission for Gender Equality, kena ho Twitter re @CGE_ZA, Facebook re Commission for Gender Equality, Instagram kena @CGE Live, kantuka romela email ho info@cge.org.za. Let's take a quick break. Rahul, titi, pote. On Soshebeletse Gender Space, the show that explores everything gender inequality. My name is Twasa. Tonight, we are discussing widowhood, women and girls in succession and inheritance cases. Before the break, we were discussing taba ya bahlolohadi, le tlhekefetso ya bona, le taba ya hore ba qhekanyetswe ha ho tluwa tabeng tsa mafa, haholo re shebile hape le tabena ya bana ba banana. does the succession and inheritance status quo look in South Africa? Ke yona taba e re batlang ho e sheba hana jwale. Ke sheba ka ho wena ntate Kgontse. Di eme jwang dipalopalo ha re sheba taba ye ya mafa, haholo re shebile bahlolohadi le bana ba banana?
What's more important is that when we started looking at the topic of widowhood, focusing at our elderly women on the basis that if you look at, especially in rural areas, that is where it's rife. You know, in modern or urban areas, a lot of women know their rights. But in the rural area, a lot of women have the rights. But then we brought up the conversation to young people. Or if we are going to speak of elderly, where does it leave the young lady? And then what was interesting in noting, and what we also found out in some of the studies, I will speak more on the study in Senakwe, it was that you find that when we speak of the inheritance or succession, before we even get to a young married woman, it starts there. How do they rate both children, especially when or a woman? There's issues related to a young man being the one that inherits the land. And this thing and culture area which means therefore the man is entitled to that, which is discriminatory in its nature, because equality, where we come from, both genders. Therefore, if and because if in situations where bana or it's only women who are left behind, that's where the family comes in and says, okay, but from the family who then comes in and inherit by Andisa, especially in other cultures, if the house or the estate is inherited by Mwana, she's going to get married and who says that? Who said that the young woman would want to get married?
Sure.
Those are interesting things that we find in the study, especially that speaks to the young woman,
Sure.
especially when it comes to issues of succession.
Are they even aware of what they are losing out on just on the basis of their gender in your findings?
Quite interestingly, in some of the studies that we're continuously doing, Walena, that also the nature of how culture is embedded. Because from household, you can't handle an estate, because you can only deal with minor things. So the interest, even in young people, young ladies to take over the estate, seemed to be less on the basis of how they were raised. If demarcating security, always tempering on the vulnerable things. Security is vested momotongwarare. So even the interest, you find that when we even dealing with patriarchy, because when you speak about issues aligned to widowhood, you find issues of patriarchy. You find that there are even young women who'd still put it up there, or so you see the brainwashing that has come there. And even in other conversations, I think earlier when I came into the studio, I was having an interesting conversation differently. As a man, how your daughter must serve you food. Simple thing. Will teach your daughter how to go out and behave outside. So that's everybody else, or your daughter must know that she has a space in this estate.
Do you find that widows feel the same, that at times they're not entitled to their husband's estate? Do you find that they respond the same way?
No, angeke ngivumelane naloko kakhulu. Inkinga lesiyitholile la, not to say bafelokati abawati imalungelo, some bayawati, kodwa ngokwesaba nokusatshiswa they abakhoni ukuthi banga exercise emalungelo abo. Nakubo labantwana kuyafanana. Umntwana uma akhuliswa la ekhaya, namuhla indzaba yemalungelo iyakhulunywa. Uyathi umntwana wentombatana ukuthi entitled naye for something yakhe. Uma singabuka nje namuhla kunema cases leka hambako la eSouth Africa la ubona khona umntwana nentombatana sekalwela lungelo lakhe lokuthi phela la lobukhosi lobusebami. So bayati ukuthi I'm entitled to this. The only thing kusatshiswa lokuba khona. That is why ubona bomake sometimes baze bashiye lokulebanako bacolele kuhamba kuze abe safe nebantwana bakhe.
Khonze, briefly, issues it's some of the violations against widows and girls. Di hlahella jwang in the research?
There are issues related to customary. Anything customary law speaks to issues because of if you level issue here, when we speak of widowhood, you can never speak of widowhood and not consider the fact that these people were married. And when there is a marriage, there is a customary act that could have taken place at that point. And in most cases, you look at the issues, you know that culturally there's lobola, and lobola means coming in of two families. Therefore, which means it speaks to customary act. I mean, we've seen a lot of things, a lot of marriages that have taken that effect, even though sometimes you even find that some, when you do study, you find that some, you find situations where men do not really tell their families when they marry. They would rather choose a different delegation. And then it is only when the man dies that everything comes up. And then that is where customary act comes in. And so relevance more. And also in terms of discrimination, more relevance most of the times, relevance what the international, because the international instruments or the international body speaks a lot about issues around widowhood than your domestic countries. Like right now, our law will speak of there's Bill of Rights, protection of everyone's rights against discrimination. But internationally, they are well tabulated. For example, Ronaldinho Convention for Elimination of Violence Against Women, CEDAW. CEDAW is very clear of how a woman is not to be violated. Our domestic laws are the ones that prevent international law to take full effect. Because our laws based on how we or our cultures are embedded, and which makes it hard for us to take a convention such as CEDAW, which is very strong, and eliminate all the issues like discrimination to said, or possible on the basis that we have our domestic laws a country because we are an autonomous state.
Hai tabatsena dingata fela ka jeno re adile ho di tshohla. So you know what, don't go anywhere. Ha re khutla mona re tlo tswella pele ka tsona. It's time for us to take a short break. Stay glued, stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Titi pote. Dumela hape hle bile re a amohela jwalo ka ha re tswella pele ho qoqa ditaba kwano ho gender space. If you've just tuned in, listen, this is where we are advocating for gender equality, and today we are talking widowhood, succession and inheritance in relation to women and girls. Haiba onale bothata, you have any complaint related to this issue of ill treatment ya bahlolohadi, you can call the Commission for Gender Equality on 0800 00 7709 to lodge a complaint. Ke kopa ke qale ka wena moratuwa wa ka hore a ko re jwetse, please, di rights tsa bahlolohadi hantlentle ke eng? What rights do they have?
Ngiyabonga again Thwaso emalungelo ebafelokati. One, njengoba ngichazile ekucaleni ukuthi sigayidwa iConstitution, kulungelo labo kutreatwa ngesidima, right to dignity. Kulungelo labo kutreatwa ngokuthi bahlonishwe, ukuthi baphile ku space lesiphephile, bangahlukunyedwa, batikhethele ukuthi bona bafuna kuphila noma ngokwenkolo noma ngokweculture, kukuye lokho, akusho ukuthi wena mkhethele. Kulungelo lakhe lokuthi futhi avikeleke ngokomthetho. That is why sinematiko lahlukene ekuthini uma bafelokati sebatithola banaletinkinga tokuthi emalungelo abo manje sekachashado bangene kuleyo minyango leyo basitakale.
Hlerikena Honamo, where do they go? Here's a widow, here's a girl child who feels that their rights have been violated. Where do they go for recourse? Ufumana thuso.
Kokuqala angeta nakithi silikhomishane lokulingana ngekwebulili. Thina sitayibuka lenzaba yakhe kokuthi ithingani. Uma kuyindzaba mhlambe lele sibona ukuthi ngile yemafa. Siyacela kulabanye like the pro bono lawyers kokuthi bangenelele bamside. Siyakhona kuthatha le case si refer go South African legal aid South Africa. Kwathini uma simbona lo mfelokati ukuthi uyahlupheka and ufuna kuvikeleka, ufuna i-protection order, siyakhona kumthatha sambe naye siyomvulisa i-protection order. Sibuye futhi sibafundzise kakhulu ngoba uma singede sabafundzisa angeke bakhone kwati ukuthi ayini la malungelo abo ngikuphi la kufanele baye khona.
Maybe Kitle Huena Khunze, tell us about the prosecution of parties found to have violated the legal rights of widows and girl children. What happens there?
Not only do we also refer, but the CGE also has a legal department. Elor can take you easily through the processes in terms of prosecution. And Jara Kibule earlier, when it comes to issues related to discrimination, the law ibulekhile for the courts to take it as a discriminatory issue and then take it up like that. The court has changed how we view customary act. Even if the family was not fully involved, but there are three things that Molaoteo Odishebang Khona know for you as Motwame to say, I was legally married to this person, customary marriage, and then these are the things that have gone through the Lord Badi Sheba. Say, look, they make you legitimate owner or the inheritor of the land. So yes, that's how it comes with Samankateng in most cases.
Memolta akore hlalosetsehle. Do you have offices ho phatlalla lena?
Yebo sinawo ema office kuyo yonke iprovince. Sinawo eKZN, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape, Limpopo, Northwest, Free State, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng.
If you have any complaints related to this issue of ill treatment of widows, you can call the Commission for Gender Equality on 0800 00 7709 to lodge a complaint. Well, that concludes tonight's offering of Gender Space. It was indeed informative, and I am sure you also agree. Let's tackle another gender equality issue again next week, right here on Dumisa TV, channel 340. So long.